Nick Graham is widely known in the KDE world.
Quiet, Nico. Okay, so someone sent me a link to this, or to mention this earlier. Nate Graham started up some sort of foundation, profit company for KDE. I've had Nate on the podcast before. Nate's a cool dude. I'll probably reach out to him to talk about this because, you know, Nate's cool. I like Nate. He does cool things. Yeah. Let's see what this is about, because I literally was not aware of this. I assume Nate has... Did Nate publish a blog post about it? I don't actually know. Nate Graham. If you look up Nate Graham, the first picture you see is the podcast I did with him. The second picture is the Facebook... I don't know if that's the same... Is that the... Wait, is that the... No, that's a... No, that's a different guy. Wait, is it? I don't even know. Maybe it's a picture of when it was like 18. Yeah, okay, he did write a blog post about it. That's cool. Anyway, let's watch the Nico video. I don't like when this is here. Hopefully it's not actually gonna do that.
Nick Graham.
No, it just works. Why was it saying it was fine, whatever.
Is widely known in the KDE world. He is a board member of the KDE EV, the non-profit behind KDE Plasma and KDE in general development.
Is audio level good?
He also writes the This Week in KDE blog post, has done various interviews about KDE software and so on. Like, everybody knows him. Yesterday, he has announced that he created a for-profit company that hires various KDE developers.
I think the for-profit thing is interesting, right? Because there's a lot of these not-for-profits in the FOSS world, and that's great. But when you're a not-for-profit, you inherently limit the kind of people that want to get involved in it, right? Like there's a lot of companies out there that simply do not want to support a not-for-profit or a non-profit, whatever you want to call it. They specifically want to be in a situation where you do work, they make money. There's like a relationship back and forth here. I get why most of the things in the FOSS world are operated on non-profits, because they're open source. It's kind of hard to make a profit model based around it anyway, without starting to do, you know, kind of sketchy things and putting binaries behind paywalls, things like that. But I'm kind of curious to see how this thing goes.
And that will become a KDE EV patron as well. The company is called Techpaladin, and it's
a cool name.
Owned by David Edmundson, another very public KDE developer. He has also done interviews on.
David, I believe. Well, I had David on the podcast as well. David, he was working on the session restoration. So you reload KDE and it remembers firstly where your windows are, but also what windows you had open.
KDE. On top of that, I'm also happy to announce that I am one of the contractors working for Techpaladin, and I'll be continuing my...
Oh, that explains why you made a video on it then.
KDE Plasma development work with them. This might sound exciting, but as usual, to understand the full scope of this news, we need to take a few steps back and understand the whole thing. So firstly, both me, Nate's, and David's previous employees was Blue Systems. BS is a German company that actively...
Don't call them BS! Nico, I know English is not your first language. I'm well aware, but don't refer to your previous or current employer as BS. I'm aware that's the acronym. But there are better ways you can do that. Just call them Blue Sys, or, you know, B Sys or something. Don't use an acronym.
Worked on projects such as KDE Plasma, Netrunner, OS, Plasma Mobile, Manjaro, KDE Neon, Maui. You still remember the Maui guys? The Calamares installer.
Blue Systems is short enough anyway. Yeah.
Blue Systems was founded by the German businessman Clemens Tönnies.
Surely there's a better picture of him than this. Google's doing this guy dirty.
Junior, I don't know how it's pronounced correctly, I'm sorry about that. If you just search that name, this guy will pop up and you'll discover that he owns 46% of a meat processing industry and has an estimated wealth of around $1.6 billion. This is the senior Clemens, not the junior one, who is the nephew. So wrong Clemens. Clemens Tonis Jr. left the meat processing company by transferring his shares to the brother, and there's very few public information about him. He has given an interview back in 2012 to
He's German, he's always going to look serious. Fair. You make a fair argument.
.de, and back then he was a 36 years old computer scientist and self-described philanthropist. Clemens started sponsoring the KDE and back then even hired Jonathan Riddle, who packaged.
I'm almost certain his name does not have a 3 in it. It's sure no, this has got to be a mistake you've written multiple times. There's no way that his name has a 3 in it.
Releases of Kubuntu after Canonical discontinued the support for that distribution.
Or it's a weird character that's rendering weirdly.
In 2012, Blue Systems had no business model. This is a quote, or at least not yet. However, more recently, they had added Valve's SteamOS in the list of official collaborations. And
yeah, I believe Valve was funding work on KDE through Blue Systems, if I recall correctly. Let me see. Blue Systems Valve. Yeah. Yeah, so Valve is basically like sponsoring work through them.
As I have previously covered on this channel, Valve has had decided to sponsor KDE development work through Blue Systems, which led to many KDE developers to become contractors for Blue Systems whilst being sponsored by Valve. And as I somehow privately announced a bit less than 2 years ago, this also included myself. I've been a contractor for Blue Systems, sponsored by Valve, for quite some time now. To be clear, Blue Systems was not the only Valve-sponsored company. Yeah. As another example, Igalia also had, and maybe still has, a contract to work on the graphics stack, I think, of the Steam Deck.
They're definitely doing a lot of AMD work. I just got an email the other day about moving from OpenGL to Zinc. Yeah, so they're definitely still doing a lot of work.
At least they say so in their blog post. Yet another example is Collabora, who also briefly talked about their work.
Collabora is who I meant, not Igalia, my bad.
With Valve regarding SteamOS. But then, what happened to Blue Systems then? According to Nate, about a dozen of Blue Systems' current people moved to the new Techpaladin company, and this comes after 6 years of BS employing from Nate.
He's doing it again. Maybe he doesn't like the company. This could be what it is. This could be why he's referring to it as BS.
The reason for this change is not...
But I feel like he's just not, like, making the connection in his head. I don't think that's on purpose. But if it is, it's funny. If it's not, it's still funny.
Stated, but according to Nate, it has not been any kind of hostile takeover, but rather, and I quote, a mutual decision made between the owner of Blue Systems, myself, and David Edmundson, and Blue Systems' other personnel who are moving over. We currently know that the company has more than a dozen contractors, employees, spread across 7 countries and 2 continents, plus the co-owner. This is not the first time that Nate runs a company. He also talks about the fact that from 2011 to 2014, he had a 2-person 3D printing company named, wait for it, Techpaladin Printing. They sold parts.
He just likes the name Techpaladin. I wonder what Nate's gamer tag could be. Could it be Techpaladin? I feel like there might be a connection here.
Kits, and according to Nate, this was his first experience, first exposure with a free and open source software movement. According to Nate, Techpaladin also inherited the Valve contract that Blue Systems had as their first and, I believe, currently only client. As they say,
wait, I'm sorry, what was that?
With Nate, Techpaladin also inherited the Valve contract that Blue Systems had.
Techpaladin inherited the Valve contract Blue Systems had. Okay. Right, so they basically just took over. Like, he said it wasn't a hostile takeover, but he basically just like took over their major contract. All right. It sounds like Blue Systems is like kind of pulling out of doing this work then.
As their first and I believe currently only client, as they say on their webpage, or should I say our webpage, we are responsible for the user experience of the Steam Deck in desktop mode. Techpaladin seems to also be currently looking for other clients. As Nate says, if you see an awful bug that you're experiencing, or, well, you can get in touch.
Yeah, this is a thing that I've heard a lot of people talk about. There's not really any good way to sponsor work on a Linux desktop, right? Like, a lot of people have talked about it, like, hey, I want to pay money to get a bug fixed, but there just wasn't, there was like no one to go to, right? Like, you could go to people's individual Patreons, and I guess that would work, but you have no idea if that person like has the knowledge and the skill set to do so. So I think something like this, voice crack, I think something like this actually does serve a lot of value, and actually like making it publicly aware that this is something that can be done.
And the company will help you sponsor that bug fix, or maybe a new feature or any kind of custom development. You can just contact Techpaladin. Most likely Techpaladin is also looking for corporate clients. Following Valve's example, other companies that use KDE Plasma on their hardware might...
Watching Nico's video on Nate Graham's new company doing KDE development.
Benefit from paying Techpaladin to improve the desktop specific or mobile, who knows, specifically for their...
Who's this Nate? Do you not know who Nate Graham is? Nate Graham writes the KDE weekly blog post. He's been on the podcast a couple of times. Basically, if you see any like KDE news, Nate's probably somehow involved. He's in like the KDE EV and a bunch of other things as well.
Devices. Nate will be running the business, but he's also currently a KDE EV board member, but he also plans to still publish the This Week in Plasma blog post.
This makes sense, considering he's basically going from doing the work that he is currently doing at one company to another company. So it's not like his like work level is changing. I guess technically he's in like a leadership position. This is gonna go up on the React channel, not the main channel.
And also still do technical work, review other people merge requests, triage bug reports, and so on. So the work is not stopping. He is unstoppable. Really what this means is that from now on, the contract that Valve has to improve the KDE Plasma desktop is now in the hands of, well, KDE developers, Nate and David. It will be interesting to see how this company grows and how it will maintain its relationship with the KDE EV non-profit. And if you know anyone who wants to sponsor...
Well, I don't really see how it could really get in the way of that, right? Because, like, they already had people working at for-profit companies on the KDE EV. I'm pretty sure Blue System was a for-profit... Was Blue System... Hold up. I actually don't want to say this wrong. Blue Systems. Is Blue Systems a for-profit or non-profit? I actually don't know. So, Yeah. Okay. So he was already working at a for-profit company anyway. So he's going from a for-profit company to a for-profit company, staying in a leadership position. I don't really see how that could be a problem. It's effectively... He's doing the exact same thing, just with a different title, basically.
Or some feature, or any company that needs KDE development of any kind, feel free to reach out to Techpaladin to get some things done. And by the way, this isn't in the script, but I will also mention that since this channel that I'm running at the same time of, doing KDE Plasma development is technically being run at a loss because I have contractors and expenses due to services, servers, and hardware, equipment, all that stuff. Expenses are currently higher than income. So technically, Techpaladin is practically sponsoring this channel, because without that job, I wouldn't be able to, run this thing at without any income. So if you want to make sure that this channel,
I'm not sure how he's running the channel at a loss. I actually don't know how that's happening. Because, yeah, the videos aren't super popular, but I don't know what he could possibly have in expenses that could be so limiting. I'll have to ask him about that.
There's also
maybe he has, I don't know, maybe he has an editor? I don't know.
Donation links in the video description. If we could keep this little side thing as a, income thing, that could help. Right now it's an expense, but it's a lovely one.
Yeah, I don't know how he's I don't know how he's running it, the channel where that's a problem. Anyway, I'm interested to see how this goes. It sounds like it's basically going to be it sounds like it's basically going to be the same thing as Blue Systems, except it's run by KDE developers, right? So it's a lot closer to the work being done rather than being done by some, big separate person, leadership position outside the project. So it's probably going to be a healthier way to run it. Now, whether they're going to keep up contracts, this will be a wait and see situation. I have a lot of respect for Nate for doing this, right? Going out of your way to start up a whole new company in the open source space, and then have employees, straight away. That's a really big responsibility to take on. So, I hope it goes well for him. I hope it goes well for David and Nico and anybody else who happens to be working there. Yeah. I like Nico's videos. I'll send you the link to it. Be sure to go check it out. If you're not subbed to Nico, yeah, go do so.